Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
Hello, and welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere, and I'm Chris Parker. Today, I have Pat Lynes joining me from the UK, and Pat is the founder and CEO of S&S, Sullivan and Stanley, and I've been near Sullivan Stanley as part of their community probably for the last 9 or 10 months, maybe, helping them enter into the Dutch market, which I'm sure we'll talk about today. And also working on a data strategy project, which is the first project we won in the Netherlands. So the reason I was attracted to Sullivan and Stanley essentially was Pat and also Nicole, the partner opening the Netherlands. And so I'm really delighted to have Pat here, really to have the conversation and share the story and kick it around a little bit. So Pat Lynes, welcome. Can you introduce yourself and focus on what the motivation is behind what you're doing? So what do you do and why do you do what you do?
Okay. Well, hi Chris, thanks for inviting me on the show. Really pleased to be here. So yeah, I'm Pat Lynes, founder of Sullivan and Stanley. What do I do and why do I do it? So look, short story is I've been in the interim management game for coming up to sort of 20 years now, and I've always really enjoyed it. And a number of reasons why, really. I think it was a lot of my upbringing. I've got 2 quite colourful Irish parents, and all my family are Irish, and they moved over to London in the late 70s, which was probably not the best time to come over as an Irish couple. But having said that, they quickly found their feet in sort of East London, and I had the privilege of just being brought up with a real sort of community spirit to my upbringing, open house door policy, all sorts of nationalities congregating together in East London and North London, looking after each other. And primarily my dad used to work in the banking sector. So in North London, he was a manager of a retail bank, and he used to lend money to all the retailers and all the businesses in and around North London. And I was always brought on his journey, and in amongst of watching how he dealt with people, how he built relationships, how he gave back to a community, how they gave back to him, and occasionally going to the odd Arsenal match or 2 as well, being in London, which was good. Mm-hmm. And you kind of grow up and see that, and that gets into your subconscious mind. And I fell into. I was always a salesy person, and Chris, I could talk for England, and I'm quite passionate about what I do. And all my friends used to say, you'll be a salesperson. You can sell ice to an Eskimo. I was like, really, I don't know. I do. And then I fell into recruitment, and then I was like, bingo, straight away. I absolutely loved it, because there was a lot of similarities with how my dad brought me up about being involved in the community and looking after people and contributing to society and all that kind of stuff, and just good values and a strong moral compass. And you get into recruitment where sometimes people would say that isn't inherent in that particular industry, but the good guys, it absolutely is. If you're thinking about primarily what a recruiter does, you're an opportunity maker, and you create opportunity for people, and you connect people to opportunity. And guess what? That puts food on the table and gives them a certain lifestyle, and it helps them on their journey. And you get privileged access to becoming, their confident coach, agent, I suppose, in its own right. And I loved that from the off. But my game was always interim management. I love building communities of experts and connecting them to problems. First 7 years I did it in telecoms. I then wanted to learn how to grow a business, so I joined a startup called LaFosse Associates, which was a successful part of my journey. It's still a successful business now. So that was 7 years, Chris. And again, I learned how to take 4 people around a table, set a strategy, create a culture, taking it on a seven-year journey from, essentially was doing sort of, 30K a month to being a really healthy 9-figure revenue business. And we won loads of awards, and, Virgin, Fast Track, best companies to work for, all that kind of stuff, which was brilliant. But towards the end of that journey, I just found recruitment was becoming a commoditized thing. I mean, I just don't get why you would commoditize human capital. I think it's, and still today, the best edge you will have as a business, the groups of people that you bring in to do great stuff. And that fundamentally just didn't sit right with me, the commoditization of recruitment. I loved working with boards. I loved working with groups of experts. I loved solving problems. Clients used to come to me instead of going to the likes of Accenture and Deloitte and PwC. Never really competed in, I mean, with some recruitment firms and interim management firms, you would do, like, Boyden and Heidricks and, some of the bigger sort of search firms or interim management firms. But on the whole, I would be relationship driven. So when the commodity sort of wave happened in recruitment and you start to build a big business and all of a sudden you're sat behind preferred supplier lists and, on-site recruiters, and you're getting, further away from decision makers, I thought, I never got it into this game for that. It doesn't really matter if I'm being paid well. It doesn't matter if I've got equity in this business. It's just not aligned to my values. So, just in the interest of we've only got half an hour, I made the brave decision to set up Sullivan and Stanley, and Sullivan's 9 and Stanley is 6. They're my 2 boys, and I wanted to build a services business that stood for something that inspired the future of work, and I wanted to bring my black book of experts into a community-driven consulting firm, change partner, that worked with execs and boards and leadership teams to deliver real change. And just brilliant to say, 3 and a bit years later, I met you at a round table. We clicked immediately, I'd like to think, and thank you for all the support you've been giving us as we've been trying to build our footprint in Northern Europe. So what do I do? I like to solve business problems, and I'm an opportunity maker. I like to connect people to opportunity. I like to build businesses that have an impact, and want to make the most of my time here.
Yeah, and I always appreciate listening to that story as well. So I'm just take up the whole 30 minutes if you need. But I am interested to pick a little bit, because with the previous agency, I think you even won best Headhunter in the UK. Or, so really you were flying high.
Yeah. It was a lovely award, really. I mean, it was Global Interim Recruiter of the Year, which made it nice was it was voted by peers and clients rather than a sponsorship driven thing. So that was really nice, and I think as well, you kind of, I still have imposter syndrome now, and I'm sure you get that as well, Chris. The levels you push yourself to, you get comfortable, and then you put yourself out of your comfort zone, and imposter syndrome comes back. And I kind of had imposter syndrome quite a bit at LaFosse, but always used to put myself out of my comfort zone. And when I won that, I just thought, wow, that's actually pretty cool. And, maybe I could make a difference in trying to re-engineer what we do. Well, and there was a white space that I could see that no one was really occupying, or there were some people trying to do it, but as you've seen elsewhere, it's hard to pull off.
Yeah, and I can imagine, and I'm just curious about maybe that emotional story is so you were flying high, you won the national award in your craft, in your trade. And I think at the same time you were writing a book about basically how to do it different. So clearly, and you just called it a white space, I think, if we're talking about the same thing. Clearly you were seeing that there's a different, better way of achieving these results and solving these problems and serving these people. So was there an overlap there between you sort of writing the book and really putting your thoughts out, on black and white and then executing, or how did all that happen for you in order to make the choice to really go all in on Sullivan and Stanley?
Yeah, look, great question. The award was 2014, and I resigned from my previous board director position in January 2016. So I think the award was the catalyst to think, most of the experts that know me and trust me, and I've known for years, everyone was moaning about the state of recruitment. Everyone was moaning about the state of consulting and management consulting fatigue. The stats, McKinsey had a stat in 2012 about 70% of change programs failing. Now it's 85%, during the pandemic, that stat is going in the wrong direction. And fundamentally, organizations are just not building a sustainable capability like they once did. They either outsource their best thinking to the big guys, and they outsource the change to the big guys. So there's no inherent learning in organizations. Or they commoditize expertise and then grumble when, there's a complete defunct orchestra of experts heading in all different directions and driving complexity and bloat and bureaucracy, and wonder why it fails. And I just thought, there's got to be a way where And I still do believe that, interim management is an underused route to capability, because the thing that everyone talks about is this jobs revolution at the sort of white collar end of the gig economy. So blue collar, we all know, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, all the usuals everyone knows. But no one's actually talking about the fact that people like you, Chris, you've gone on that journey. They're there now. You want to be portfolio. You want to have a side hustle. You want to have your podcast. You want to use your creativity to come up with your, business canvas that, hopefully will continue to garner support and gather strength. And then actually, if you want to be a practitioner, you can jump into ABN and do that for a bit. And if you decide that you want to go on holiday for 2 weeks, you can just make that call. And when you do decide to go into some of the organisations to be a practitioner, you don't have to get involved in the politics as much, because you say, look, hey, I've been there, done that. I'm just telling you how it is. And I think that has a real liberative effect on experts. So this was starting to really accelerate. All my best clients, most of them were going, Pat, can we go for dinner? I want your advice on how to go interim. I'm going to go interim. I'm going to become a portfolio executive, etc., etc. So I just thought, this wave's going to go that way, and there's going to be this real untapped workforce of expertise. Management consulting fatigue is going to continue. And actually, I talked about it in my book. I did think this decade would be, I didn't think it would be how it's really started for this decade. I knew the fourth industrial era and the industrial era would just cause all sorts of structural tension across the board, which it is. And I just wanted to try and position a new business to capitalise on a new way of working, the new way of providing services, purpose first, profit second vibe. We call it first, comma second in SNS. And yeah, my dad just said, stop moaning about it, do something about it. You've promised the board at the FOSH you're going to execute something by the end of 2015. Do that, keep your integrity intact, which you did. But on the side, do a business plan. So then when we get to Christmas and we walk the beach together, we can say apples, or we can say apples and oranges. And then we either go for oranges or we stick with the apple. Or it's apples and apples. And, my wife and I will make a decision on whether we want to put the family through the stress. So walked the beach, was undecided, had a couple of pints of Guinness as we were over in Ireland, had a real chat, and then decided that I was going to go for it. And my wife was fully on board, as was my dad, which was great. And then the journey began. The book I started writing in 2016 because I just thought the biggest rebuttal, which no one says, or they sometimes say, but it's in the back of the mind every time. It's still there now. I don't get fired for hiring IBM. It's pervasive. Most execs, decision makers, on the whole, the sort of baby boomer demographic. So there's that heritage of it's just safe. And it's a badge. And I can get that gold-plated signature and I can just outsource it. And look, I get that. And I'm not here to say anything derogatory about the big consulting firms. There's some great people in there and they do some great stuff. It's just, I do fundamentally believe the market is looking for something different. And I thought by writing a book and putting my thoughts, points of view, the research I did, interviewing hundreds of execs, and then talking through the model and where I thought the world of work and the world of business is going, would give me the credibility to get in through a few more doors. So it was a big challenge, but I don't regret it. And there's some stuff I talked about in my book in 2016, which has happened. And and they always say something. You've always got. They always say you've got a book in you, don't they? So I'm pleased. It was hard, but I'm pleased I did it.
And if off the top of my head, the book is called Interim Revolution, and we'll put that in the show notes. And then you also crowdsourced another book called, I think, CIO 2.0 through your community, which is, I think, a brilliant way of writing a book. But I'd like to come back with maybe to unpack this transformation failure metric. And then I'd like to link it back to Change Ready 6, because I think that's a fascinating tool. As we've been going through this Corona time, that's been the big digital catalyst. The CIO, CDO, CTO never had the impact that Corona's having on organizations and their digitalization. I'm wondering if maybe contributing to a lot of the failure of large scale transformation is they just didn't need to happen. Meaning, how much of this is just ego or budget that need to burn, or, that there was never really, sometimes there is, but really a burning platform that required such a change. And then you get smart people around the table, these big consultancies, and sometimes even me. I've done big, stupid stuff with companies before. It's fun. It's career building, it's CV building. So I'm curious if what your feeling is on that, and Change Ready 6, which is a method of assessing, change readiness. Is that a solution to this? Maybe you're doing the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Oh,
how's that for a question?
It's fully loaded. I'm just going to say how I feel about it. I think even the word transformation sounds hard, doesn't it? 84% of transformations fail because they probably started off with the right intention, but the world's just moving too quickly now, so it just can't wait for 3 years. The days of doing a big bang 3-year transformation and then fully loading all the benefits out the back, but by the time you get to 3 or 6 months, things change. I mean, look at I spoke to a client the other day, and he was and they're in the exhibitions industry, and they've been really burnt for obvious reasons with the pandemic, and they did a exec away day in our offices, actually. So we've got an immersion centre where we bring execs to take a bit of a corporate pause, which we'll get into the Change Ready 6 bit. And on their extreme risk register was, basically it was a pandemic and a war. So, no one saw that coming. So it's an extreme example. It just goes to show how quickly, the world is moving and things happen when you least expect it. So I just think the word transformation is overused. Mm-hmm. I think most big corporates have been, if you look at a typical organization of 500 plus, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 users, whether it's centrally geographically located or dispersed around the globe or around Europe, they've all been there for 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years. They're like, oh, here comes another exec group in, another transformation. And they just sit it out. Mm-hmm. You've got this, it's just, I think people are fatigued with the word transformation. I think it's, on the whole, big bang, huge, complex, and it's just difficult to execute on. So our premise, and where Change Ready 6 sort of comes into this, is maybe we should retire the word transformation and just talk about a world of continual change. The output that's been coming out, and I invite everyone to just geek out on the World Economic Forum, Davos, and the output from a business perspective that's come out from that. And there's an interesting, I'll give you some of the links and stuff just for the listeners, but 7 things organizations need to do to thrive in a VUCA world this decade. So volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous.
Yep.
Describes this decade to a T. And one of them is organizations need to master the science of organizational change and put change at the heart of their agenda. And it's exactly what I've been talking about for years, what Sullivan Stanley stands for. We stand for solving that problem. We stand for helping organizations, simplify change and then actually helping them build a sustainable capability. Because for me, you're not just what you do. So you might be a big bank, you might be an insurer, you might be a fintech, you might be in healthcare, telco, retail, media, but you're also in the business of change because your customers' preferences are changing weekly, monthly, quarterly. The competition is off the Richter scale. The newer age groups coming through want to continually learn. They want project-based, they want outcomes, they want to be empowered, they want trust. And you've got the old industrial way of working clashing with this new way of working, and it's just causing a lot of complexity, and a lot of executives are, trying to make sense of it. So Change Ready 6, to answer the question, we built it out first because it really helped us. One of our first pieces of work at Sullivan Stanley was to move a monopolised payments firm that had not competed for 30 years and turn it into a faster fintech organisation, which was bought out by one of the big payments companies. So we use the premise of this tool to help align an exec group. And now that we've sort of turned it into a proper digital asset, another organisation we work with, we just used it as a tool. There's 40 questions. We got an exec group around a table, all divisional CEOs of different opcos, and we went through the 40 questions. And the real gold in it was two things. The first thing was the questions and the debate.
Mm-hmm.
So usually the test takes 15 to 20 minutes. 4 hours, and we were able to observe and facilitate and ask.
So you had them do the questions
Correct,
live
yeah.
in the session? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, on the away day. And at the end of it, they were kind of like, what do you think your score was? And they were like, it was good fun. And they got like 32%. And then they were like, right, in your opinion, what is good? Which will then enable us to be able to consume the amount of change that's coming into the business and be a success in time. And we said, in our experience, anything sort of between 60 and 70%, you're in a good spot. And he goes, right, we need to get 60% as quickly as possible. The group CEO, tell us how to get there. Yeah. So just bring gamification into the change process. So, I will close off by saying, if you were going on a huge trip, taking your family to travel around the globe for a year, Chris, how much planning would you do? How much would you do to get your family ready, to get your business interests ready, your economics ready, your plan ready? How long would you take to do that?
Well, I imagine it would be, quite a bit over a couple months at least, just slowly putting all the pieces together. And
most businesses just smash this transformation without getting ready at all. Which is fine. If you just get change ready, just take a step back. A lot of these transformations fail because the alignment on intention, and the alignment on execution, the alignment of the business, isn't there. If you look at what's happened with COVID, it's probably the first time in maybe since ever that any of the big corporates have had the same goal, the same sense of purpose, pulling in the same direction to execute one outcome is to survive and get everyone to digitally be able to work.
Yeah.
And they do it in days and weeks, mostly days, sometimes in big organizations, a week or two. So it just drives through that. And we do a lot of our work there where it's like, guys, take a pause. Let's get you out of your context. Let's bring you into an immersion center. Let's work with you over a day or 2 days. So we get more of a breakthrough in 8 hours than you might do with an hour here, an hour there over sort of a month or two. So the Change 36 tool has been a good one for us. And as I say, everything we're trying to do is to try and solve this change problem. And we haven't cracked it yet because it's an ongoing thing, but we are helping a lot of organizations, become better versions of themselves when it comes to being able to deliver change, consume change, and different working.
It sort of reminded me of a story from when I was, earlier in my career, probably way too young, but blessed for the opportunity to be the group CIO for a multinational financial services company. And we relabeled the enterprise architecture team to enterprise investment because I wasn't interested in the stack of paper. I was interested in the value we were creating. But again, as a CIO with an accounting background, I was asking different questions that was making everyone uncomfortable, which was great. And when we did an assessment of all the group projects, we realized that almost none of them were actually aligned to the stated strategy, so complete misalignment. And more, if you dug into it, most of these were hobby projects. Maybe that's a bit too derogatory, but these were the individual projects that the individual leaders felt was most important. I'm sure they felt it was very important, but actually connecting to, where we're all going together was completely lost. And that's actually when I got involved in the customer experience revolution back, 10 years ago, because I was like, well, wait a second. Not only are we not lined up around the strategy, but we're not doing anything for the customer here. So another way you could actually call this just complete waste. And I wish we would have had the, tool like Change 86 back then, because I think that might have saved a whole lot of pain and suffering. So I can't imagine that every executive would be open and vulnerable to, basically, opening their kimono and answering 40 questions and getting a 32% or 36% in front of everyone. So is there a certain type of executive that you're delighted to work with? And is there a certain type that you will say, no, thanks? And how do you make that decision?
It's a good question. I mean, look, the truth is when you're building a business from scratch, you say yes to all clients at the start. And if I think about one or two clients, it'd be unfair for me to say, so I won't go into the detail, but you realise they're not up for the change. They're just not up for it. They say they are, but they're not. Frozen middle will always be frozen, and they'll never change the people. And we have a saying, is we can't change the people, change the people, which, I'm sure will polarise opinions, but if you're really set on real transformation and bite-sized change that will get you to your North Star, everyone's got to be on the same boat. And if you're not on the same boat, you just end up having your permanent team and your associate team getting frustrated and fatigued. And, so we try our best now at the front end to find executives who really are up for it. We haven't got to the utopia where we've absolutely nailed our avatar yet, Chris, I'm going to be honest, but on the whole, they want to bust through bureaucracy. They stand for real change. They want to, leave a positive impact on that business. Of course they want to have that impact their career too. And on the whole, they're looking for something different. They get the old Marshall Goldsmith saying, you'll know well, what got you here won't get you there. And they try something different. So they don't want to go to the usual big brand names. They want to try something different. They tend to be lifelong learners. They tend to be risk takers, and they want to experiment. And we find once we find those, we've got clients for life. That's one of our components of our strategy here, which is clients for life. It takes a lot of time to win one. So once you win one, everything you should do should be there to serve the client and to do the right thing. So on the whole, surmise, looking for something different. They stand for real change. They want to create something of value, and they will bulldoze through the nonsense on the whole. And I say either bulldoze through influencing, or actually just clear the path for the outcome and really support and be a strong sponsorship is what we're looking for. Where the ones where it's been a lot harder is when the sponsor's gone missing after 3 to 6 months because they're busy doing something else.
Yeah. And you mentioned lifelong learning. I'm curious, we've got about 2 minutes left. If you can share a little bit about how you keep going. Because I know you're actually in some like entrepreneur networks where you keep learning and you have a certain cadence. So if you could just share, because something I'm impressed about with you is how do you keep going, achieving so much and still maintaining, some sanity and some energy and a rich family life.
Yeah. So I made a decision in my late 20s to make my most out of my time here. And when I was in my late 20s, I knew I had some talent and I knew what my strengths were, but I had a lot of weaknesses, as we all did. And I hated public speaking, and there's all sorts of things that I knew I needed to do. I just made a decision. I'm going to push myself and keep pushing myself and keep trying to grow. So, and it's really caught fire in I'm 41 now. In the last 6 or 7 years, I've really dedicated myself to just bite-sized learning, in the gym, in the car, walking to the train, podcast. It's amazing, just like subconsciously the stuff you build up from listening to podcasts. I'm not an incessant reader, but I like to do a new course every year. So I got a great tip years ago, and I'll try to be super quick here, where plan your forward year the year before. So now I've got my 2021 Giant Sasco wall planner, and I've already built out that I'm joining Strategic Coach, which is a Dan Sullivan thing.
I know Strategic Coach, great. Yeah.
Help me further on my journey. And then I've got 3 weekends where I'm doing stuff with my wife, where we go away and be husband and wife. And then I've got my family stuff, I've got my fishing stuff. And so I always try and do a new course once a year. And mostly those courses will have some sort of network to them. So I'm part of a UK entrepreneur network called Dent Global, run by Dan Priestley, who's one of my business mentors, which has been amazing. Some great people there. And it's still business, but it's more smaller businesses. So I get really sort of the digital marketing and the hustling and the real sort of, guerrilla stuff that can make the difference sometimes. And then I recently joined last year an American network called Genius Network, run by Joe Polish. So I want to get fresh thinking from the States. So once a year I've flown over twice. Obviously now pandemic, we're doing it on Zooms, but that's good because I get to mix with different people again, get different thinking. And then obviously I'm joining Strategic Coach, and I have this thing around who's in your boardroom. So I always have a boardroom, and I change my boardroom every 18 months. So my dad's always in there, my wife's always in there.
Yeah.
I always have a business mentor, a life coach. I have had a personal trainer as well in times gone by when I've wanted to get fit. And then some sort of course where I'm learning, and Darren, who you've met, has a great saying of doing it through the line. So I just, if I'm doing a course a year, I've planned it, and I've got that course gets you structured about networking with other people, and then podcasting and meeting good people like you, and going to networking events. And if you dedicate to that, the compound effect improves you as a person, I believe.
Outstanding. So dedicating to that as a compound effect on your life and your business. So
correct. And one final thing, minimum of 30 days holiday a year to be with the family, and that's one of the reasons I left the last, small reason, but one of the reasons I left. 20 days holiday a year, I burnt that by 2 kids. They got loads of holidays. You want to be there. Conscious of running out of time, but half an hour, that was very quick. You did warn me.
I did. We're overtime, but I'm enjoying it and letting we go. But we do need to wrap up. So beautifully done, Pat. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your business journey and some of your success tactics. For everyone, I'll in the show notes, you can go to sullivanandstanley.com, and Pat Lynes, that's Lynes on LinkedIn. Pat, thank you so much for joining Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show, Chris. It was brilliant. Really enjoyed it.
Learn more at ebillion.com/podcast.